Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to Wednesday Night Reviews reading of Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. Mr. Eames has been kind enough to allow us to publish this reading to YouTube for everyone to enjoy. He is a Canadian-born writer, originally from Wingham, Ontario. After attending college for theater arts, he changed direction in life to become, in his own words, an epic fantasy writer. Based on the book you're about to enjoy, I'd say he's making great strides towards that goal. My name is Konrad, and I'll be your narrator tonight on this wild adventure. Now, where were we?
Tam had a vague recollection of falling to her knees amidst the wreckage of her loot. Her father stood over her, his shadow thrown by lamplight in every direction. He was speaking, but she couldn't make out the words over the shrill roar in her ears. She was hoisted to her feet and dragged down the hall to her room, where she collapsed on the bed like a prisoner granted rest between sessions of torture. She glared at his silhouette framed in the hallway's dim light and whispered, because she too was capable of monstrous cruelty, "I wish you had died instead of her." His shadow slumped. "So do I," he said, and shut the door between them. She cried for a while, great racking sobs that soaked her pillow, and once she screamed at the top of her lungs. Somewhere beyond her window, a lonely trash imp echoed her cry. Shortly after, Tam could have sworn she heard the muffled sound of her father's voice from his room on the other side of her wall. At times, when he was wildly drunk, he would rant at length, cursing himself and everyone he'd ever known. This was different. It sounded as though he was pleading with someone, arguing a lost cause against an intractable judge. And then he, too, fell to weeping, which wasn't uncommon at all. Eventually she slept. When Tam awoke, the door was ajar. Threnody was nestled in the crook of her chin. The cat's tail tickled her nose, and when Tam dared to move, the little jerk swatted her in the cheek. Dawnlight filtered through the frosted pane of her window, painting the opposite wall in whirls of light and dark. Tam lay there for a time, wondering if she would ever escape this place. It wouldn't be today. Her loot was destroyed, and she wasn't about to ask Edwick if he happened to have another she could borrow. She couldn't go back to Fable empty-handed, and it wouldn't matter anyway, since Tam doubted even Bloody Rose could, or would, stand in Tuck's way when he came to take her back. Instead, she would work at the Cornerstone, or at the mill with her father. It didn't matter. She would squirrel away every coin she could spare until she had enough to get herself as far from Ardburg as possible. She could hear Tuck bustling around the house, chopping in the kitchen, scraping something raw on the washboard, sweeping splinters and shards off the kitchen floor. Soon she smelled bacon frying, and God's be damned if her stomach didn't demand she get up and eat. She clambered out of bed, got dressed, and padded out into the kitchen, with the cat at her heels. She spent a confused moment taking in the scene. Laundry, her laundry, hissing itself dry on the flat top of the wooden stove, a rucksack half packed by the door, her father kneeling before the hearth doing his best to manage two pans at once. He glanced over his shoulder when Threnody announced their arrival with a tentative meow. "Morning." "What is this?" she asked. "This," said Tuck, "is breakfast." He set a slab of toasted bread on a plate and heaped it with twists of almost burnt bacon. He topped that with diced tomatoes and altogether too many brown onions. Then set it on the table. "Sit, eat, please," he added, when she remained exactly where she was. She sat, she ate. Snakes on fire had been her mother's specialty, though she'd made it with considerably more finesse than this. Was it supposed to be a peace offering? "Sorry I dashed your hopes and ruined your life, dear. Here's the bottom half of a bacon sandwich." Her father vanished before she could ask him about it, or about the rucksack, or why he'd decided to wash her socks at the crack of dawn. Threnody nosed the door and whined until Tam let her out. When she turned back, her father was standing across the table with a sealskin loot case in his hands. "Is that—" "Hireth. It belonged to your mother." She knew that. Of course she knew that. Her mother once claimed that Hireth was her third favorite thing in the world after Tam and Tuck. What about Uncle Bran? She remembered to ask, which had earned one of her mother's musical laughs. "I love Hireth more, but don't tell him, okay?" Her father laid the case on the table, unfastened its ivory toggles, and drew it open to reveal the weathered whitewood face of the instrument inside. Hireth was a thing of beauty. She was a hand longer than most other lutes, with polished bone tuning pegs and a shallow, heart-shaped bowl. Tuck cleared his throat. I want you to have this. To take it with you. She would want that, I think. And then everything fell into place. The breakfast, her laundry, the pack waiting by the door. She was leaving. He was letting her go. Tam practically flew across the kitchen. She slammed into her father and flung her arms around him. It was like hugging a great big oak. And when his arms encircled her, she squeezed her eyes shut and loosed a breath she'd been holding for what felt like years. Thank you, she murmured. Thank you. I'll come visit whenever I can. No, you won't. I will. As soon as we finish this contract in Denmark, I'll ask. No, he said. Tam, you must never come back. She backed off, bewildered. What? What does that mean? It means I never want to see you again. The words hit her like a smack. Do you hate me so much? She asked coldly. Gods, no. Tam, I love you. I love you more than my life. But when your mother died, it hurt so bad it nearly killed me. It would have if not for you. He reached out and took her face in his hands. When you smile, I see her. When you laugh, I swear to the summer lord I can hear her still. As long as you're alive, Tam, then so is she. Can you understand that? I don't want you to go, but I can't keep you here, I know that. She took one of his big, scarred hands in hers. Then why? She asked. Why can't I come back? Because what if you don't? What if you never do? If you leave and you die, I couldn't forgive myself. If never seeing you again means believing you're alive, and you're out there somewhere happy and free, then I can live with that. I'll have to. But I can't wait here wondering whether or not you'll return, worrying if you're gone too long that you're... I can't. He stopped abruptly, choking on a sob. Please, Tam. Don't make me live like that. It has to be this way. So I just go? She asked. She wasn't crying, not really, but she could feel tears spilling hot down her cheeks. Go, he said quietly. Wherever your wild heart leads you. Go. She ate the rest of her breakfast while Tuck folded her laundry and finished packing her bag. They talked all the while, but afterwards she couldn't remember a thing they'd said to one another. Eventually they ran out of words, and before Tam knew it, she was standing with her pack over one shoulder and Hereth on the other. Threnody was outside when she opened the door. Tam scooped her up and buried her face in the cat's soft fur. You take good care of Dad, she whispered. Don't fight with the other cats and watch out for the trash imps. When her father wasn't looking, Tam snatched the piece of ribbon he'd been toying with the night before and tied a pretty little bow around Thren's neck. She'd have tarried longer, soaking up a few more precious moments with her father, but Rose had said they were heading out first thing in the morning, and Tam feared she might already be too late. They embraced one last time. Tam clung to her father as if an abyss had opened up beneath her feet. It took all of her courage she had to let go. She was 10 feet from the door when Tuck abandoned his sentimental stoicism and began dispensing fatherly advice. Stay dry, he called to her, and warm. And don't start smoking. Or scratching. Or drinking. Dad! Okay, don't drink too much. And don't sleep with anyone in the band. That turned her around. You're joking, right? He shrugged and tried on a smile that didn't quite fit. I'll always love you, Tam. I know, she said. Then she turned and ran without looking back. The Rebel's Redoubt was still parked outside the Cornerstone when Tam arrived. Short of breath, her shoulders chafed raw by leather straps. She doubled over, her hands on her knees, and pressed a fist into her gut where a nasty cramp was settling in and hanging up art. She nearly yelped. Okay, she did yelp. When the door to the Argosy banged open. A man dressed in a pale pink blouse and voluminous yellow trousers stomped down the rear steps. He wore a silk scarf, the same garish yellow as his trousers, tied beneath his pointed beard, and a farcically large hat that looked to Tam like a tree stump stuffed with white foxtails. He leaned against the wagon and watched her gasp for a while. He was holding a steaming teacup in one hand and a long-stemmed pipe in the other. After a few languid puffs, he tipped the hat from his eyes and peered at her. "You must be the new bard. Tom, was it?" "Do I look like a Tom?" His eyes narrowed as he sucked the stem of his pipe again. "You people all look the same to me." "What people?" "Bards," he clarified. "Every one of you reeks of false confidence, blind optimism, and..." He sniffed the air. "Is that bacon? Did you bring bacon with you? Because if that's the case, then you and I have started off on the wrong hoof entirely." Foot," he said. "I meant foot." Rose came strolling out of the Cornerstone with Freecloud behind her. She wore a plain white tunic tucked into a pair of black leather trousers so tight Tam nearly bit her tongue off to keep it from rolling out of her mouth. The merc tossed a stunted half-pipe between her legs and slapped around for a light until Freecloud struck a match and lit it for her. "Morning, Roderick. I see you've met the new bard. What happened to the old bard?" "Dead," said Rose. "What?" Tam and Roderick voiced their surprise as one. "She's kidding," the Druid assured them. "Chimeras took umbrage with our decision not to rush off and fight the Brummel horde. He's found a new band now, and we have Tam." "Roderick's our broker," Rose explained to Tam. "Handler of contracts, wrangler of wranglers, arranger of lodgings, and a lord of the outlaw nation. Also, he bails us out of jail," said Freecloud. Tam looked dubiously at Fable's booker. "What's the outlaw nation?" "You'll meet them tomorrow," Roderick said, and then hollered, "Brune, Kira, the wheels are a-rollin', get your asses out here." Within moments, Fable's final two members emerged from the inn. Brune was sporting a black eye and a broad smile. "Morning, Tam. Rod, what's brewing today?" The booker helped himself to a noisy sip from the teacup in his hand. "A bracing green leaf from Linmore. It'll help with the hangover, but not the eye. Dare I ask how the other guy looks?" The shaman dipped his head towards Kira. "She looks fine to me," he said, and hauled himself up to the Argosi's steps. The Inkwitch, meanwhile, was engaged in a protracted goodbye kiss with a man wearing a flail on his hip and a dead fox draped across his shoulders. She tore her mouth free like a jackal lifting its gory maw from a fresh kill. When the man leaned in, Kira slapped him, kissed him again, then pushed him off and strode away without looking back. The man, a merc, Tam supposed, stood dazed. He touched 2 fingers to his lower lip and frowned when they came away bloody. Kira graced Tam with a wink as she passed, then plucked the teacup out of Roderick's hands and climbed on board. Rose took a final drag of her smoke before handing it off to Freecloud. "How long have we got to sleep?" she asked Roderick. "The ravine's an hour west of here. Call it 2, accounting for traffic." Freecloud sucked the dregs from Rose's half-pipe before flinging it into the snow. "That'll have to do, I suppose." "Sleep?" Tam looked between the 3 of them incredulously. "Didn't you all just wake up?" Rose started up the Argosi's steps. "Wake up," she called over her shoulder. "We never went to bed."